Let's stay with this story and speak to Nhlanhla Gumede, Regulator member at National Energy Regulator of South Africa. Thank you so much, Mr. Gumede, for your time. How tough was the balancing act?
Very difficult. I think the greater difficulty is that, I think as we call it, we're actually sitting between a rock and a hard place. On one end, you have someone that says we need to use diesel to actually try to balance or to minimize load shedding. But it means that the consumers would still have to pay for the rest of the coal plants that are sitting idle, but at the same time pay for diesel. So you actually we have to then say, do we allow this increase, all of it, and allow Eskom to use more diesel as it's required, is asking us to do? Or do you allow load shedding? And at any rate, what you are saying is that even if you allow all of this diesel that they are asking for, will it solve load shedding? The answer is no. So it was a very, very difficult decision.
So if then we are not pretty much going to get anything good as consumers out of this one, I mean, think about the fact that right now stage 6 is on indefinitely, about 11.5 hours of no electricity. So how then does Nersa begin to justify this particular decision to consumers who are not getting the service from Eskom? Essentially, they're getting an increase for a service they cannot provide.
Well, unfortunately, we have a particular methodology that needs to be applied. And Eskom took us to court to force us to actually use that methodology. So we could not use the methodology. But in using the methodology, we had to then try to extract efficiencies. That's at best what we could do. But do that within the methodology. Now, unfortunately, the methodology does not also come with an obligation for Eskom to then supply. That is the challenge with the current methodology. So we actually have to play within the rules. So the overall solution has to come from changing the rules.
So can we then see the changing of rules in future? And what will this take?
Well, we do need to start the process. We did start the process in December of 2021, and we're hoping that we'll continue with the process. Really, for one of the things that we are simply saying is that it is important that we move towards cost-reflective tariffs. But in moving towards those cost-reflective tariffs, it must be for assets that are truly in use. So what we're saying is that ideally, like it happens in all other environments and for all other market participants, is that every Eskom plant must be able to wash its own face. That those plants that are not working, they shouldn't be paid. So there are lots of such changes that need to come. And we've started the process, and we're kind of hoping that in the next few months or so, we'll actually progress the process further. But as long as we are still using the MYPD4 methodology, we are bound to actually implement it to the T.
So basically, you, as you said in the beginning, caught between a rock and a hard place. I know you say a few months. Someone watching tonight is keen to find out, what does a few months look like? Is it 3? Is it 6? Is it 12? Because really, when you look at this and you look at what some of the people are saying in reaction to our question today, because we're asking them about these tariff increases, it appears to be an untenable situation.
Well, a few months, it depends. Unfortunately, any legal process has to follow due process. I mean, we can't on our own just make changes. Those changes need to be negotiated with the licensees, need to be negotiated with all of the public. It needs to be understood. And also, we don't want to end up in a situation where we come in with something that was bad into something that was worse. So we need to be able to convince everybody that the solution that is being put forward will indeed solve the problem. So in terms of the months, it could well be, 6 months in terms of the conversations, but the actual implementation itself, unfortunately, because it's a legal process, will take its time.
Let's talk about the submissions. I mean, listening earlier to the briefing, there's some 2,000 or just over 2,000 submissions that were made when it comes to the response to Eskom's application. What were they asking you for?
Well, most of them were simply saying that as one of our board members was also then saying, I'm not happy to approve anything higher than inflation. Most of us have not seen a salary increase, or even if those that have seen salary increases is linked to inflation. So why should somebody actually get an increase much higher than inflation? So others were simply saying, no, there should not be any increase. But unfortunately, most of those submissions were not looking and saying, this is what the methodology says. This is what we believe based on this methodology that you can make these adjustments. But there's been a whole lot of them, but people have been opposed to this increase almost across the board.
And then I suppose, as you say, that, you're bound by this methodology, and if it ends up in the courts as well, then you'll then be asked to then implement it. But someone tonight is watching, and they probably, for them, the methodology is something that they don't even want to take into consideration. And for them, it's a non-starter because of load shedding. What do you say to the viewers watching tonight to make this even, something they can be able to swallow? Because ultimately, this has caused much more anger to households who are buckling under pressure.
I think it's a very difficult one. As I sit today, we've been arguing even within, ourselves and saying this can't be, but we are then saying, but we are, unfortunately, we're working under the rule of law. So, and for anybody that makes investments in the country, it's important to understand that we will maintain this rule of law. That if we breach this rule of law for one player, what's stopping us from breaching this rule of law for everybody? So we have to honor the legal prescripts under which we are operating. It is a very difficult thing. So all you need to do is for us, all of the people, and saying, what is it that we can do to change, and what could this new change be, and take on and assist us in effecting that change.
So listening to you, it really sounds like this increase was granted begrudgingly. And you say that the conversations were quite difficult as you were talking amongst yourselves. Was this grudge agreement a unanimous one, or were those among yourselves that thought it does make sense to grant Eskom this particular increase?
Well, let's put it this way. There were some amongst us who are simply saying, we've been to court before. We don't want to go back to court for actually breaking our own methodology. There are others who then simply said, yes, we can see the methodology, but honestly, we cannot justify an increase more than inflation. Others were simply saying, yes, the methodology is there, but you can still extract efficiencies. So no, we had a joint ER decision, but it was not a unanimous decision, no.
All right, I'd like to be a fly on the wall one day to just listen to some of these arguments as you continue to have them, because tonight it's a bitter pill to swallow for South Africans who are in the dark, have been in the dark for most of the day, who now have to pay for a service that Eskom is not providing. And one can certainly hope that when you are talking about, amending this particular methodology and re-looking at this particular process, that can be maybe something that we can then see what happens in the future. But thank you so much for your time, Bab Gumede. We do appreciate it. That was Nhlanhla Gumede, regulator member at National Energy Regulator of South Africa.